Okay, for this lesson, 6.2, we're going to be solving multiple step equations. We also just call these multi-step equations. The main idea is that we are going to be working backwards. So we're going to be using our properties of equality and undoing what's happening to the variable so that we can get the variable by itself and solve the equation. So make sure that you're focusing on what's happening to the variable so you can undo it. Well, let's look at a situation where we have something like 6 minus 10x equals 66. Well, 6 minus 10x, most people would say, oh, x is being multiplied by 10 and then being subtracted from 6. And so the last thing they said was subtract, so they think they would have to add 6. But that wouldn't be correct. That wouldn't undo what's happening. It wouldn't be undoing a 6 at all. Adding 6 would be the exact opposite of what you want to do. So if we take this problem and rewrite it as negative 10x plus 6, we're using the commutative property. We know we can rewrite 6 minus 10x as 6 plus negative 10x, and then we can go ahead and write the negative 10x first, and then write the positive 6, and then it equals 66. So for today's lesson, if the variable, the term that has the variable is later on in the statement, then you want to write that first. So you want to use the commutative property. So we call this the commutative property. Actually, I think I have that written down later, so we'll just make sure that you use that. And so then you would know to, minus 6 from both sides. And then you'd have negative 10x equals 66, or 60. And then divide by negative 10. And you have x equals negative 6. This is called the commutative property. You're going to need to use it. Commutative property. Okay, pause the video if you need to, but we're going to go over how to do this. So, solving equations, what you're doing when you solve an equation is you're finding the value that makes the equation true. So you're basically finding the number that you can plug in for the variable. Here's how you do it. You have to figure out what's happening first. So ask yourself, what is happening to the variable? And then once you've decided what's happening, you need to undo those and work backward. So you're actually saying, okay, what's happening to the variable, order of operations. Now let's do those or those operations backward. Okay, so let's look at this first example. We have an equation where negative g plus 18 is negative 32. Well, some of you would know that this means the same thing. 18 minus g equals negative 32. But if it was written this way, then the g is coming later, and it's hard to decide what's happening because most people would say, g is being subtracted from 18, and then they'd want to add 18 because they said the word subtract. Well, that would be counterintuitive. You wouldn't be able to solve this. So this one's actually been rewritten with the commutative property. So you would want to minus 18 from both sides. And remember, with your table, you write given. And then is your equation, and then you're using the subtraction property of equality. And then you simplify that, so you get negative g, which is actually the same as negative 1g, is negative 50. So how do I get g by itself? Well, if it's negative, it's being multiplied by negative 1. So, by the way, that was simplify. So now I'm going to use the division property of equality, and I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. So I get g equals 50. G equals positive 50 by simplifying. Okay, so that's how your problem should look on your assignment. Let's clear this and look at the other example. Notice that in this example 1b, that the c over 2 is written later on. So we should probably use a commutative property so we don't get confused. So if I, My bad. Oh, don't tell me. Okay, sorry about that. So on this next example, you may want to rewrite this as c over 2 minus 3, which is the same as c, or negative 3 plus c over 2. Anyway, and then add 3 to both sides to get that negative 3 out of there. And then we're going to we'll simplify, and we get c over 2 equals 15. Multiply both sides by 2, so go ahead and show that, and you get c equals 30. Okay, now I could go ahead and check this and plug in 30 to the original equation to see if it really works. Well, what's 30 divided by 2? It's 15. And what's 15 added to negative 3? It's equal to 12. So you can check these. You don't have to wonder if it's right. You can plug it back in and see if it works. Okay, on this example 2, we're going to do b first. And if you look at b, it looks like it's being the variable. Remember, ask yourself what is happening to the variable. The variable is p. It's being added by 3 first because it's inside parentheses, and then it's being multiplied by 4. So if I'm going to work backwards, I got to undo what happened last and undo that first. So we said it was added by 3, then multiplied by 4. So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite that. And then you'll see that the first thing that I want to undo is the times by 4. So I'm going to divide both sides by 4. That's the division property of equality. Then simplify, and that's p plus 3 equals 9. Now undo the plus 3 by minusing 3 to both sides, and you have p equals 6. And so there's your solution. Now let's try the other example. And on this one, you want to make sure you simplify first. So you have 7x minus negative 1. You're probably going to want to rewrite that. So if we rewrite that, we're going to get negative 4 equals 7x plus 1 and over negative 8. So the first thing that I would undo is, well, first ask yourself what's happening to the variable. So the variable is being times by 7, then added by 1, then divided by negative 8. So let's undo these things backwards. How do we undo divide by negative 8? So we're going to times both sides by negative 8. And so when I multiply the negative 4 by negative 8, I get positive 32 equals 7x plus 1. So now I need to keep going backwards. So the thing I want to undo now is the plus 1. I'm going to minus 1 from both sides. So now I have 31 equals 7x. Now I need to undo the times by 7, so I'm going to divide by 7. And then most of you would type this into your calculator, but guess what? I like improper fractions better than decimals, better than mixed numbers. So I would just leave this as x equals 31 over 7. And that, to me, is the best way to write that answer. Now I could also plug this back in and check it. So don't forget that you can do that. And then on the last example are word problems. And so let's look at these. First one I would write, I would make sure that I define my variable. Let's go a little bit slower here. And I decided the variable was going to be n. Quotient means divide, so make sure that you write n divided by 4, and then decrease by 2 minus 2 equals 6. Now we want to solve it. So add 2 to both sides. Now it's going a little slow. So you get n over 4 is equal to 8. Let's speed this up a little bit. N over 4 is equal to 8. So now times both sides by 4, and you get n equals 32. And then this last example, when it says 11 more than, you're adding 11 to something. And what are you adding it to? 3 times a number. So 3 times a number might be something like 3 times x. Added by 11, because it's 11 more than that, is equal to 101. And then go ahead and and minus 11 from both sides. That gives you 3x equals 90. Divide by 3, and you get x equals 30. And you could plug that back into the situation and check and see if it's true. 3 times a number, 30, would be 90. Add 11 to it is 101. Now, be careful on these guys, because remember that you may sometimes have to use the commutative property, like on number 1 on the assignment. Number 1 on the assignment says 10 minus 6v is equal to, and I think it says actually negative 104, right? Negative 104. Okay, you want to rewrite that first. Just rewrite it. Negative 6v plus 10 means the same thing. So it's still equal to negative 104. I just used the commutative property. I wrote the negative 6v first, and then I wrote the positive 10 after the negative 6v. Now I can go ahead and solve this. V's being times by negative 6, added by 10. So I'm going to minus 10 first. And when you minus 10 from an already negative number, you get 6v is equal to a more negative number. So it's kind of weird, but so negative 114. Now go ahead and divide by negative 6. So just use the commutative property. Then v equals 19. So there's the answer to number 1. Don't forget to rewrite these. You've got quite a few other problems. I believe number 9 and number 11, the variables after something. So it says like 5 minus h. Rewrite that as negative h plus 5. You guys will be good. 12-minute lesson. There you go.